evening. Welcome to the news at 7 on 90 International. We're live here in Abuja. I'm Ruth Aguele. Let's start with the headlines. President Buhari appreciates China's immense contributions in turning around Nigeria's infrastructure deficits. Probe of EFCC boss presidency affirms no one above scrutiny under the Buhari's administration. Nigeria's Senate passes sexual harassment bill. And WAEC announces 3rd August to 5th September as new date for examination. President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed Nigeria's appreciation to the People's Republic of China for immensely contributing towards reversing the nation's critical infrastructure deficit. Now, this was at a virtual farewell audience with the outgoing Chinese ambassador to Nigeria, Dr. Zhou Pingyang. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has more.
During the 4-year tour of duty to Nigeria by the outgoing Chinese envoy, President Muhammadu Buhari had visited China twice, first on a state visit in 2016 at the invitation of President Xi Jinping, and the other for the China-Africa Cooperation Summit in 2018. Although Nigeria and China enjoy bilateral relations spanning 50 years, benefits derived in the last 4 years have been remarkably outstanding. As President Buhari kept emphasizing, the Chinese government interventions in critical infrastructure and other key economic sectors have positively impacted millions of Nigerians and will continue to do so in generations to come. And during this virtual farewell audience with the outgoing Chinese ambassador, Dr. Zhou Pingyang, the president maintained that there is no way a country can move forward if it is hampered by severe deficit in infrastructure. He therefore asked the envoy to formally convey his administration's appreciation to President Xi Jinping for the contributions of China towards reversing the infrastructure deficit in the country. Nigeria, he explained, had suffered a lot in the areas of rail, roads, airports, and power, saying no country can develop in such a situation. China, President Buhari said, had played its role effectively in all the memoranda of understanding signed with Nigeria, and his administration is quite appreciative. The outgoing ambassador, Dr. Zhou Pingyang, had described his tour of duty to Nigeria as highly rewarding and greatly appreciating the government and people of Nigeria. Having visited all the 36 states of the country, the envoy said he had seen the remarkable progress being made under the Buhari administration and expressed confidence in the ability of Nigeria to fly higher. Dr. Pingyang appreciated Nigeria's solidarity with China at critical times, particularly when COVID-19 broke out. The outgoing ambassador said the One China policy is dear to his country and lauded Nigeria for her support. The envoy promised to remain a goodwill ambassador of Nigeria. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
And to other issues, businesses of Nigeria trading community in Ghana has come under prolonged shutdown, giving rise to growth, losses and untold hardship. But the narrative has changed following intervention of the federal government in the reopening of Nigerians' commercial premises in Ghana. Abubakar Usman Akwanga reports that the development prompted appreciation visit by the National Association of Nigeria Traders to Nigeria's in Diaspora Commission.
600 shops owned by Nigerians in Ghana had suffered ill-fated treatment owing to shutdown of business premises for the period of 6 months. This prompted the federal government to swiftly wade into the situation through diplomatic efforts, which eventually restored sanity in all the affected commercial areas. Now the Nigerian business community visits the office of NITCOM to show appreciation over the development and advocates more strict diplomatic measures to avert repeat of future incidents.
We suffered for this ECOWAS since 1975. And what was the purpose? For economic integration. And if it is therefore for economic integration, we must not disintegrate the people.
NITCON chairman Abike Dabiri Irewa expressed satisfaction with the visit and revealed plan to create database for Nigerians in Ghana as well as strengthened diplomatic ties.
The Ghanaian traders should not go against their own government. So it's good news, and like you said, we have to continue the spirit of brotherliness, you know. We're all part of ECOWAS, and that is the spirit. But I think the person to thank really is President Muhammadu Buhari, because without you knowing, the president was engaging the Ghanaian president on many occasions.
She says federal government will continue to support Nigerians who are into lawful trades and urged them to limit themselves to regulations of their host countries. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
From the global scene, 49 individuals and organizations involved in some of the most notorious human rights violations and abuses in recent years have been designated for sanctions under a powerful new regime established Tuesday, the 7th July 2020 by the UK. Foreign Secretary who announced this said the individuals and organizations are the first wave of designations under the new regime, with further sanctions expected in the coming months as the measures will target individuals and organizations rather than nations. Henceforth, the groundbreaking global regime means the UK has new powers to stop those involved in serious human rights abuses and violations from entering the country, channeling money through UK banks or profiting from the country's economy. Now, this is the first time that the UK has sanctioned people or entities for human rights violations and abuses under a UK-only regime and will allow the UK to work independently with allies such as the US, Canada, Australia and the European Union. The first targets of sanctions under this new regime are 25 Russian nationals involved in the mistreatment and death of Auditor Sergei Magnitsky, who uncovered widespread Russian corruption by a group of Russian tax and police officials. 20 Saudi nationals involved in the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, 2 high-ranking Myanmar military generals involved in the systematic and brutal violence against the Rohingya people and other ethnic minorities, 2 organizations involved in the forced labor, torture and murder that takes place in North Korea's Gulag. It could also include those who commit unlawful killings perpetrated against journalists and media workers, or violations and abuses motivated on the grounds of religion or belief. And to discuss some of the implications of the UK sanctions under the new global human rights regime is Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, Mr. Tony Ojukwu. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ojukwu.
Thank you for having me.
Now, with this new sanction, what is expected of countries in keeping up with it just imposed by the UK?
Well, UK has just made a clear statement that it is ready to be a defender of human rights, that it is ready to fulfill its obligations under international law, to be a protector of human rights, not to harbor any violators of human rights. And this is what is expected of every country that is a member of the international community, that is a member of the UN. I think for Nigeria, Nigeria should also follow suit and make sure that Nigeria is not a safe haven for anybody who violates human rights. And
okay, go ahead.
And Nigeria, of course, should also collaborate with the UK so that people who violate human rights in Nigeria cannot have any safe haven in the UK because they cannot enter the UK, and the assets will also be frozen in the UK and vice versa.
Okay, from what you're saying, I'm sure it applies to Nigeria's situation. It says, because the sanction says it will utilize a range of tools to tackle serious human rights violations. Is that what you're trying to clarify? Exactly,
because of course in Nigeria, human rights violations is a major challenge. This is a signal to all those who violate human rights in Nigeria that, of course, UK will no longer be a safe haven for them. They cannot enter the UK, and all their assets in the UK will be frozen. So we believe that moving forward, this will help perpetrators of human rights in Nigeria to know that there's no hiding place in the UK, and hopefully that will help them to reduce support for human rights violations.
Okay, and also money laundering is one major problem Nigeria has been grappling with for many years. How will this new regime help check that?
Of course, money laundering has been a major challenge in the Nigerian society. Now, this will help to curb money laundering in the sense that those who fritter away monies of Nigeria, UK will no longer be a safe haven for them, and those who have of course, stashed away assets of Nigeria through money laundering in the UK will now lose them. And they cannot even enter the UK to be able to access all that. So it is very important that people should use this as a lesson to stop money laundering and help to curb corruption in the country. So in effect, what UK has done is also going to discourage corruption in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much. Of course, we hope that Nigeria's image will always be on a positive note. Thank you very much, Mr. Tony Ojukwu. All right, let's look at some other pressing issues. The presidency on Tuesday declared that the ongoing probe of the acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ibrahim Magu, is an affirmation that nobody under the present administration is above scrutiny. According to facts made available to State House correspondents by an anonymous presidency source, the interrogation of the anti-graft boss is to give him the opportunity to clear himself of the weighty allegations. The source maintained that the investigation of the EFCC boss was to reinforce the Buhari administration's commitment to transparency and accountability. The presidency source affirmed that the holder of an elevated office such as chairman of the EFCC must be above suspicion. It also assured that the administration will not prejudge anyone, as it could be counted on to uphold justice and fairness. The panel investigating allegations against acting EFCC chairman had been sitting for some weeks now, and in consonance with the principle of fairness and justice, it is only fair that the acting chairman be given opportunity to respond to the allegations, which are weighty in nature. Under the Muhammadu Buhari administration, the source insists nobody is above scrutiny. The investigation is therefore to reinforce transparency and accountability rather than to vitiate it. Let's turn our attention to legislative matters. Ondo State House of Assembly has received impeachment notice on the state deputy governor Agbola Ajayi, who recently defected to PDP from the ruling party in the state. Now, the House has therefore set up a panel of inquiry to investigate allegation of misconduct leveled against the deputy governor for fair hearing. Olubukola Aduo takes it up from here.
The Ondo State House of Assembly, which had been on recess since May 21st, reconvened Tuesday with full membership of the House. The only item on the other paper was to serve impeachment notice on the state deputy governor, Agbola Ajayi. However, only Ondo State government-owned media houses were allowed to cover the proceedings. It was difficult for journalists to gain access into the hallowed chambers of the House. However, NTA News Grill gathered that all the 26 members were in plenary, which was presided over by the Speaker, Honorable Bamidele Oleyalogun. At the end of the session, 14 out of the 26 members signed the impeachment notice, while 9, including the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Ogundeji Roju, refused to sign the notice.
Impeachment is a process. In fact, it's only 9 that we even needed for what we did today. Exactly. That is 1/3. It's only 9. Then we have 14.
The House therefore set up a panel of inquiry to further investigate the allegation of misconduct against the deputy governor. Security operatives from the police and the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps have taken strategic positions of the assembly as early as 7 in the morning, but there was no breach of peace. In Akure, Olubukola Aduwo, NTA News.
We'll go on a break. We're back shortly, so stay tuned.
In times like this, the coronavirus is spreading so fast. The use of face masks has become very vital. More importantly, for the elderly in the society whom their immune system is not strong enough to fight the disease. If you must go out, use a face mask. It is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Wear your mask, I wear my mask. So much to do, but stay at home for your own safety. Make an extra washable mask and share with your neighbor. Everyone should use a face mask once you leave home to be safe from the coronavirus, especially the elderly persons in our society. Protect me, I'll protect you. This message was brought to you by the Coalition of Societies for the Right of Older Persons in Nigeria, COSRAPPing, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
NTA International News. Africa as it is.
Thanks for being there. Sexual predators in tertiary institutions to risk 14 years imprisonment as Senate passes the Sexual Harassment Bill 2020. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Onkwo has more.
It was the first plenary of the week, and the report of the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the bill against sexual exploitation in tertiary institutions topped the scale of bills scheduled for consideration. Senate's intervention towards checking this crime reached its climax as the bill to criminalize the offense with severe punishment passes third reading.
That the introduction of this bill is a welcome development and coming at the time when victims of sexual harassment in our tertiary institutions are in a state of despair and probably feeling unsafe.
Is to make sure that we protect the student in the tertiary institution.
We want our tertiary institutions to be very, very important, very safe and peaceful learning environments for everyone.
Clause 7 of the bill seeks to make the crime a strict liability. What this means is that an adult who was raped will be treated as a minor, relieving her of the burden of proof. But that received divergent opinions, but was eventually retained.
It should be deemed a strict liability offense, in which case the prosecution is no longer required to prove the mens rea.
Now, if you take the extreme, for instance, case of deliberate blackmail, which is a possibility, it's not on all the cases of sexual harassment that we found the ladies all the time correct. You must prove there's actual sexual intercourse or demand for that sex.
The bill to repeal the Police Act 2004 and to reenact the Police Act 2020 for a more responsive and responsible police force was also passed. The legislation, which seeks to improve on the Police Act, which has been in existence since 1943, also gives credence to community policing.
That the police abide, enforce certain constitutional provisions, particularly fundamental right of persons in police custody under Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
5 bills passed first reading. These include the Institute of Risk and Disaster Management Establishment Bill. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Onkwo, NTA News.
And a look at the judiciary now. The Nigerian government is soon to roll out a comprehensive master plan that will cater for juveniles in the nation's criminal justice system. Now, this was announced at a joint briefing held by the Minister of Justice and the Chief Judge of the FCT High Court on the activities of the Presidential Committee on Decongestion and Reform of Correctional Centers. Femi Okewo has the details.
On the 1st of June 2017, Nigeria's Federal Executive Council directed the creation of a special presidential committee to decongest and reform the nation's prisons, as it was then known. This committee was inaugurated on the 17th of October 2017 under the chairmanship of the Chief Judge of the FCT High Court, Justice Ishaq Bello. And so now, for the last 3 years, the committee has gone around 18 states of the Federation, visited 39 correctional centers, and released 7,813 inmates. Giving an update of the impact of the Presidential Committee on the nation's correctional and criminal justice system, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation said more fundamental are the recommendations of the committee, which have resulted in both legislative and executive interventions that have improved the nation's correctional and custodial systems. Both the minister and the chairman of the Presidential Committee said in view of their importance to the nation's future, juveniles in the nation's criminal justice system need to be particularly cared for through a comprehensive master plan which is about to be rolled out.
The committee is indeed a blessing. Its recommendations as they arise are being factored into legal framework by way of legislations that will now see to it that the circumstances associated with juveniles are indeed adequately addressed as well.
The master plan we have in the FCT is to have a sophisticated family court where you have within a window for reintegration between these young ones and their family members.
In the words of the Solicitor General of the Federation, Dayo Apata, passion and vision have been the driving force behind the success of the project so far. And these are qualities that are now more needed as we go into the next phase of the project, which is the rehabilitation of juveniles. In Abuja, Femi Okeowo, NTA News.
Thanks, Femi. An update on COVID-19. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro tests positive for coronavirus. And Melbourne returns to a complete lockdown as infections surge. Joyce Ometu has a global update.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and CDC on Monday officially confirmed 5 cases of coronavirus in Cross River State. Cross River before now was the only Nigerian state without any confirmed case of the virus. Meanwhile, Lagos State remains the epicenter of COVID-19 in Nigeria, recording a total of 11,367 cases, while Zamfara State has not reported any new case in over 1 month. The NCDC said Nigeria now has a total of 29,286 cases, 11,828 discharged, and 654 deaths recorded in all 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Data compiled by the Africa Center for Disease Control shows 497,385 cases continent-wide, 11,710 deaths, and 240,380 recoveries. Out of these numbers, South Africa accounts for more than 200,000 cases, the highest total in Africa. Health Minister Zweli Makize said another lockdown is possible. In the meantime, the Education Ministry in Kenya announced on Tuesday that primary and secondary school students will resume in 2021. Away from Africa, more than 5 million residents of Melbourne in Australia will be locked down for 6 weeks after coronavirus cases surged in the city. And Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has tested positive for coronavirus shortly after the presidential palace said he had been displaying symptoms of the disease. Bolsonaro, whose country has suffered one of the world's worst COVID-19 outbreaks, has consistently downplayed the threat of the virus. Statistics published by Worldometer as at 6 p.m. reveal that 11,818,564 people globally have now been diagnosed with COVID-19 and 542,818 have died. And that's it from here. Many thanks for watching. I am Joyce Ometu.
Thanks, Joyce. Organizational synergy is vital towards achieving success in the fight against COVID-19. And going further, Victim Support Fund has donated medical equipment to Federal Capital Territory Agency. Haman Jabani has more.
May coronavirus be a thing of the past.
This presentation of medical equipment put at 56 million naira to Federal Capital Territory Administration by the Victim Support Fund VSF is the second phase of its distribution of palliative in the fight against COVID-19. Chairman, Victim Support Fund, General T.Y. Denjuma, represented, said it is hoped that the cases of COVID-19 will reduce with these donations, while health workers will be protected as the VSF will continue to deploy sensitization campaigns to advise the populace on the need to adhere to COVID-19 protocols.
You will discover that health facilities in Nigeria have been overstretched in terms of personnel, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of drugs and everything. So this is our own support from the Presidential Committee on the Victim Support Fund in order to assist the government and the people of the FCT so that they can be able to receive adequate medical attention.
This is a second part of our intervention in FCT, where we gave food before, now we are bringing the medical items.
This thing that has been donated will be used judiciously. None of it will be wasted. And it will get to the people that are supposed to assess them. Because the government of the day is a prudent one. And we're not going to relent in that regard.
The medical consumables and devices handed over include medicine for primary and secondary medcare, medical devices and PPEs. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
A look at education. In line with the rules outlined by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, the West African Examination Council, WAEC, has confirmed the new date for the commencement of the 2020 West African Senior Secondary Certificate Examination. Head of Nigerian National Office of WAEC, Patrick Aregan, said all COVID-19 protocols will be applied across all examination centers. Ken Egbelugbe has details.
The West African Senior School Certificate Examination, earlier scheduled for May-June this year, was postponed due to the COVID-19 safety restrictions, which forced virtually all sectors to shut down, suspending most activities. This is why the annual examination will now hold beginning from the 3rd of August and terminate on the 5th September. This development comes as cheering news to students.
We were so happy, even though it is mixed, we have mixed emotions that by August we'll start our work and be done in September. It's really exciting knowing that we'll finally be done with SS3 and be done with secondary school and graduates.
Now that I know where the exam is, at least we'll be more serious. We'll go back to the aggregations and we pray to God to give us the best so that we'll pass the exam well.
The head of WAEC Nigeria office outlined requirements that must be in place at all centers for the successful conduct of the examination.
Schools must provide wash-hand buckets with running water or taps with running water, soaps, hand sanitizers, and thermometer hand gun to check the temperature of all concerned. All examination functionaries, including the council staff on distribution, supervisors, invigilators, inspectors, candidates and school officials will be required to wear face masks, wash and sanitize their hands daily and throughout the duration of the examination.
A total of 1,549,463 registered students will sit for the 2020 WAEC examination in Lagos. Ken Egbelugbe, NTA News.
Talking sports, Sports Ministry strategizes for safety of athletes post-COVID-19. Tamara Abiwi will bring us details.